Since signing Khem Birch after he cleared waivers, the Toronto Raptors have looked like a completely different team, which only goes to show what this team could have done with a full season with an actual proper center. So in this video, we look at why the Raptors need to bring him back for next season. Let's get into it. Welcome Raptors fans to Amateur Hour Sports. This is the channel where you get NBA content with a focus on the Toronto Raptors at least 4 days a week. So if you like what you see from today's video and you want more of myself talking about the Raptors in videos just like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below to show your support to the channel. Also follow us on Twitch, twitch.tv/amateursports, where we watch along every single Raptors game, including the one tonight, 15 minutes before the tip-off for the game against the Brooklyn Nets. But today we're talking about Khem Birch, who has made a pretty positive impact since coming into the Toronto Raptors team. When the trade deadline came and went and the Raptors still had not picked up a center, Raptors fans were left pulling their hair wondering what Masai Ujiri was doing and why he was not going after a center. And, a lot of people seem to think like, and fairly so, the Raptors, they didn't want to get a center because if they kept playing Baines, it would help them lose games and would help orchestrate the tank. But then a couple weeks later, that got reversed when the Raptors brought in Khem Birch after he cleared waivers from getting dropped by the Orlando Magic, and also Freddie Gillespie, who we didn't expect to have such a positive impact on this team, but Gillespie has been playing quite well. We did a full video on Gillespie a couple weeks ago, but today we're talking about Khem Birch. And when he came in, I don't think I was necessarily expecting him to be, anything special. I didn't, maybe I wasn't even expecting him to be this good, because 4.5 years with the Orlando Magic where, he really struggled to get going in his NBA career. And it's really hard to do that with a team like Orlando, who have Nikola Vucevic in the center spot. It's going to be really difficult to get your play time in the big positions. But Khem Birch, averaged about 4 to 5 points per game over his entire Orlando Magic career. Came into the Raptors where, sure, we needed a big. We needed him to get bigger minutes than what he got with Orlando. And sure, Khem Birch had experience playing with Nick Nurse at Team Canada, where he performed quite admirably under Nick Nurse. So surely there was a bit of a relationship there that helped this deal come to fruition. Khem Birch, also being Canadian, wants to play for, the home country, Toronto, Canada's franchise. That might have played a part in it. But Khem Birch, since coming in, has looked very good. And it's really illuminating to see what this Raptors team can actually achieve now that they have a proper big. And, I thought Aaron Baines was serviceable in a lot of the games. Sometimes, Aaron Baines had bad games. And I think leading up to the pickup of Khem Birch, Aaron Baines was seriously struggling with this team. And I think people were a little too overly critical of Aaron Baines as a whole. However, seeing what this team can achieve with an actual big playing is really eye-opening. It's absolutely eye-opening because Khem Birch is just a complete game changer for this Toronto Raptors team. Aaron Baines, his interior defense was all right. His rebounding was below average. His finishing at the rim was well below average. His playmaking was below average. But Khem Birch has come in and has really surprised me in what he can do on the court. Not just on defense. The fact that he can be active at the rim on defense, getting way more blocks, getting a lot more stops than Aaron Baines, that's telling, especially when the Raptors go into a bit of a zone defense. You can rely on Khem Birch to hold his own at the rim, lock down the paint. Khem Birch is a better rebounder than Aaron Baines, and that helps him get us going on offense. He helps orchestrate an offensive set, get to stop, get to rebound, gets us going, helps the other way. And then one thing that has significantly surprised me is how good of a playmaker Khem Birch is, because offensively, we've seen what he can do at the rim. Yesterday he was 7 for 9 from the field. He had a great game against the Cavaliers. 7 for 9 from the field. 7 for 7 on 2-point attempts. Went for a couple of threes that did not fall, but very good finishing at the rim. And one thing that surprised me about his offense is the playmaking, because when he's up top, in the high post or even beyond the three-point line, just in that center spot where the Raptors like to have their bigs, kind of a la Marc Gasol, where he stayed up top and he could facilitate, he could be a playmaker. And we had Aaron Baines kind of in that role, just wasn't nearly as good as Khem Birch. Khem Birch is a great passer of the basketball, and that frees up a lot of good opportunities for the likes of, let's say, OG Anunoby, who's in the corner waiting to get that shot off and be a factor on offense. I think Khem Birch is making the team better because, him himself is just a good center to have for this team. And also, the playmaking is leaving a lot of Raptors open for some good shooting opportunities. And now we know Khem Birch has been a good asset for the Toronto Raptors team. But, it's nothing phenomenal. It's nothing out of this world. There are definitely better centers in the NBA, but this is a great acquisition for the Raptors, and the Raptors absolutely need to bring this guy back for next season to play again with the Toronto Raptors. Going to be a free agent next season. Here is why the Raptors need to bring him in. So, judging from the free agent class of centers that we have coming up, there really isn't a lot of guys available that I would have any sort of interest in the center department. And also, looking at the NBA draft, the Raptors probably gonna get a high lottery pick. Looking like a high lottery pick. Could end up being worse. Probably won't be much better than a high lottery pick for the Toronto Raptors. And I think that from what I've seen from this draft class, if you're not drafting Evan Mobley as a center, then you're not drafting a center, especially for the Raptors. There really isn't a lot of good centers to pick up in the draft other than Mobley. Not to mention that drafting a center is a project. There's very few centers that come into the league absolutely polished in their position. It's a difficult position to get adjusted to in the NBA. Accustoming to guys who are bigger than you. Maybe playing in college you're the biggest guy on the floor, but coming to the NBA, everybody's the same size as you, and you have to learn other ways to compete, get your game, get that finesse at the rim. So difficult to work on a center. The Raptors don't really want to take on a project here. So you got to rule out the draft in terms of getting a new center. But going into the free agent class, if you're not looking at restricted free agency, there's not a lot of great options here. One of the restricted free agents that I've had a keen liking to is Richaun Holmes. I feel like Richaun Holmes, if he gets around $12 to $14 million, you could maybe get the Kings to not match the offer sheet, but the Kings would probably want to bring him back. And another restricted free agent is Jarrett Allen. Jarrett Allen, the Cleveland Cavaliers, he's going to get a lot of money, and I feel like Cleveland are going to want to build around this type of player. So I don't think either of these guys are realistic options here. Maybe Richaun Holmes, but I don't think necessarily Jarrett Allen is going to be a realistic option here. So your options are very limited in terms of the center department if you want to strengthen through the draft or free agency, where you really should be strengthening in the center department. This is the problem we had last offseason after Ibaka and Gasol left. Not a lot of fantastic options. Ended up going with Aaron Baines off the back of a great season with the Phoenix Suns. Did not live up to expectations, to say the least. So Khem Birch is a guy who, is starting to get accustomed to the Raptors system. He's starting to fit in a little bit on defense with these rotations, learning the rotations, learning the offensive style. 14 points last night. A lot of that down to Kyle Lowry, who said in an interview that he's out here getting Khem Birch paid, because Khem Birch said that these were the easiest 14 points he's ever scored because the playmaking on the Raptors is probably a lot better than he's seen with the Orlando Magic in his career. And no disrespect to Orlando, but that is just a simple fact of the matter. The Raptors have better playmakers. The Raptors are a better team. They've been outperforming that team. So Raptors making it a lot easier for Khem Birch. Khem Birch making it a lot easier for the Raptors to play their offensive sets. Also, Khem Birch, even though he's a little bit undersized at 6'9", still holds down the rim properly and can stretch the floor and play as the four-man, which is great when you're playing with another big, which the Raptors had great success doing when they had Gasol and Ibaka. Kind of turned away from that with Aaron Baines, but I think we're starting to see that again, especially when Boucher is healthy. Hopefully he's back soon. When Boucher is healthy, it's very nice to see a backup unit with Birch and Gillespie on the floor at the same time, or even sometimes you have Boucher and Birch on the floor at the same time. Khem Birch and Chris Boucher are both guys who can play as the 5 and as the 4, and also it's good to have them being able to rotate, because we know how good of a three-point shot Chris Boucher has displayed this season. And speaking of three-point shots, are we really looking at Khem Birch like a guy who's potentially developing that three-ball game, starting to take it a little bit more on? And I think the Raptors coaching staff and development team have kind of looked at Khem Birch's game and decided, like, okay, you've hit a few this season, start taking some. He's hit a couple with the Raptors already. Maybe you're looking at a guy who's going to work on this in the offseason, especially with the Raptors clearly giving him the green light to take those shots on. Maybe we can look at a Khem Birch who can shoot like 30% from 3 next season, shooting like 1 to 2 3-pointers a game. That would be very nice. A big who can stretch the floor and shoot the 3 ball from the corner. That would only open up more space for Siakam, Anunoby, and other players on the inside. So there's a lot of good things about Khem Birch's game. In fact, I struggle to find a lot of weaknesses in his games. Maybe the 3 ball at this present moment, but I think it's better than we expected, and I think that he can maybe develop something serviceable from 3. But other than that, I really see no weaknesses. You could talk about his height, only at 6'9", but modern NBA, that's not that big a deal, especially with his athleticism, especially with his bounce on the interior. There was a lot to like about Khem Birch. He's nothing phenomenal in any certain endeavor of the game, but there are a lot of things that he does well and not a lot of things that he does not do well. So I think that the best case for next season is the Raptors find a way to get a big, whether it be somebody in that free agent class, the restricted free agent class, whether it be somebody that they trade for. I think the Raptors, if they want to be competitive again next season, need to pick up a big somewhere. Somewhere they need to pick up a starting caliber big, and no cutting corners this time. No, just take what you get in Aaron Baines. Go make something happen to bring in an actual big to this team. Khem Birch ideally comes off the bench as the backup big. Could you imagine like a bench mob that contains Malachi Flynn running the point and Khem Birch at, let's say, the 5 and Boucher at the 4? That looks like a great second unit to me. That looks like maybe we're getting the bench mob back together, because I think the ideal starting lineup for the Raptors is, I'm assuming Kyle Lowry won't be a Raptor next season, Van Vliet, Gary Trent, Anunoby Siakam, and the new big, which gives you some good bench mob type vibes with Flynn, Boucher, and Khem Birch. Malachi Flynn, a guy who does great with bigs in the court because he thrives in the pick and roll, has two bigs to work with in the pick and roll. And Malachi Flynn, some people would say that he's better at running an offense than Fred VanVleet, but Fred VanVleet's got the more talent. He's going to start, but Malachi Flynn can absolutely operate that second unit, which is very, very exciting to me. And I think Khem Birch fits right in with that second unit. Also, you can rely on him to be maybe that starting big, but I would say go out and get a better one to start games. I think ultimately at Khem Birch's age, he won't be asking for a lot of money. This is a cheap contract and a guy you can absolutely rely on in NBA games. He is NBA caliber, absolutely no ifs, ands, or buts. And for the contract that we're probably going to be able to pick him up for, there was a lot to like about Khem Birch's game. And there's not a lot that you don't like about Khem Birch's game. He is a great asset to this team. He absolutely reps the home country of Canada. It's something the fans can get behind. Montreal boys standing up with Boucher and Khem Birch, the Bloc Québécois, playing together. It's very nice to see how he's fitting with this Raptors team. I think that we need to bring him back for next season. I'd be very, very happy with him being the backup big. Not necessarily as happy if he has to start, but I know it's a guy I can rely on to get the job done for this Toronto Raptors team, who look to be competitors in the Eastern Conference again next season. What have been your thoughts on Khem Birch so far since he's come into the Raptors? 8 games, 6 starts. I've been impressed. What about you? Let me know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. But that wraps it for me for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you're still here, be sure to like the video if you like, because it really helps with engagement on the channel, and subscribe to Amateur Hour Sports for more content just like this. We're very, very, very close to 2.7k subs on our road to 3,000, so it would mean a lot if you guys hit the subscribe button if you've not done so already for more Raptors content. Also follow us on Twitch, twitch.tv/Amateur Hour Sports, where we watch along every single Raptors game, plus do more like 2K streams. Maybe sometimes we do trivia nights. I want to see you guys there at the stream tonight for the game against the Brooklyn Nets. At the end of the day, believe what I say. If you disagree, that is okay. We'll see you again next time for another video.